Hey, so I was asked by a viewer to make a video on this. It wasn't one I'd planned on making, and I was a little reluctant to because of some other things, but I decided to go ahead and make a video. From the title, you guys would probably think I'm advocating castration, but listen through to it. The first question, I'm going to try and answer 4 questions that this guy posed. One is that in the US, the UK, and other parts of the world, it's being proposed that people convicted of sexual assault should be punished with or treated with castration. And what are your thoughts on this? First, as I've said 1,000 times, million times, and probably could never say enough times, I'm not a professional. I don't have the kind of knowledge that a lot of people think I might. And so I haven't done a great amount of research on this. That said, I have done more than the average person, and I have done quite a bit, especially because my teacher and mentor in college had done a lot of his own research on it. And so I read a lot of his research, and it sparked me to do a lot of my own. And my thoughts are that I have said and will always say, until I am proven by research, and though research can never prove anything, until I am shown by research time and again that they're finding that it's not true, sexual assault is not a sexual crime in that they're not motivated by sex. It is an act of violence. It's motivated by anger and control. There are a minute amount of people who do rape or sexually assault someone due to sexual sadistic impulses. Not just your typical sadist, but someone who gets off on the other person not only having pain, but the other person wanting to get away, fighting back, etc., etc. But that's a very small amount of your rapists out there. So because it's such a small amount, I'm not going to discuss that in this video. So do I support castration as a punishment or a treatment for rape? No, because what they're doing is something violent, and they're simply using their penis, sorry, I can't say it any other way, as the weapon. And what the little research I've read has shown is that when you take away that weapon, I mean, some of you are like, all right, fine, they're going to use that weapon, let's take it away so they can't. And of course it doesn't take off their penis, just their castration would just remove the balls. If it's surgical, and if it's chemical, would make them impossible to get an erection. So you take away their ability to use a penis as a weapon. Might sound great, except their impulse toward violence is going to be just as strong. And what I've found in the research I've read is that what happens is they instead use other objects for their violence. And typically objects that are going to be even more violent, objects that are going to cause even more bodily damage, and objects that are more likely to result in death. So if you're, I guess when it really comes down to it, I'm not a big person on punishment. I think the punishment is only effective if it's going to, okay, let me rephrase that. I'm fine with punishment. I'm not okay with getting revenge. I'm just not someone driven by revenge. I don't think it does our society any good. So, because it does us no good, it's a waste of energy. And in fact, one revenge leads to another, and it becomes a cycle that leads to a really crappy society, one I wouldn't want to be part of. So while it might be good revenge, I don't think it's very good treatment or punishment to change their behavior and to make sexual assailants into better people. The second question was, if castration was made legal as a result of sexual assault, would I want it to be physical castration or chemical? First of all, I think I made it pretty clear that I don't support it at all in either form. So it's like one of those, if you had to choose one or the other really bad things, I'd choose chemical simply because I would hope that in the future we could reverse it. And why create trauma for someone who's already mentally ill? And if you do a surgery that's going to add trauma to a mentally fragile mind, and I'm not sure where that's going to end up. And I know as I'm saying this, because one day I want to work with sexual offenders. One day, not right now, but one day. As I'm saying this, I'll probably look back on it and go, "Ah, silly girl, you didn't know anything. Now we know that this and that and this and that works." But this is where I am right now at 22 in my research, you know, which isn't very far. Yeah, I wouldn't want either. So, all right, the third question was that a lot of people, kind of funny, third question is that a lot of people view castration as simply an attempt at revenge. And do I agree with this? And do I agree with this despite the amount of research supporting castration? I mean, they weren't real clear. Yeah, I think it's revenge. And again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with revenge. I'm saying it's something I want nothing to do with. And I think it, again, spirals into a society that I don't want to be a part of. And as to all this research that supports castration, I wish some had been provided. I wish lots had been provided so I could have seen what they were talking about. Maybe this is new research I've never heard of, but the research I've read has really failed to support it as a long-term good option. Now, let me say, I don't feel that it's anyone's right to be able to have children. A lot of people think that's just our innate right. I don't. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm sure I'll get emails about how wrong I am. I mean, we require licenses to do everything imaginable except for have kids, which is the most important thing. A job as a parent is the most important job you'll ever have in your life, and yet anyone is allowed to do it no matter what. That's a whole nother rant. So, I'm not sitting here saying like, these people have a right to be able to have sexual satisfaction, they have a right to maintain their genitalia intact. It's not about that. It's not. Do they have that right? Probably not. They've probably lost that right. But do I think it's going to help if we castrate them? No, and I've never been shown anything to say otherwise. Okay, and question number 4, interestingly, was do I feel that more women support castration of sexual offenders than men? And that apparently polls, again, not showing me what polls these were, conclude that it truly is more women than men that support it. I've never done any polls on this, and more importantly, I've never read or done any exhaustive research to be able to tell, so I have no response to that, except for my own experience, and that's it. Because of my video on rape, I get thousands of messages from men and women, and pretty much 90 to 95% of the people that mention castration and how they think it should be good and should be done are men. In part, I think this is psychology that has to do with men wanting to distance themselves from the type of man that would rape. A lot of people have used the words, the person that rapes you couldn't possibly be called a man because men couldn't ever do something like that. So men's reaction to let's just castrate them might be wanting to distance themselves. It might be that men often come up with that because it's the worst thing that they can imagine being done to them, so they think that's what should be done to something so awful. So in my experience, it's actually men that really support it a whole lot more than women. I know this video is getting long, but I'm not going to care. I'm going to keep talking in a second. I want to clarify, and I know people say I repeat myself a lot. Sometimes you have to repeat yourself 10 times. especially when you have so many people that just want to take a little thing out of context and nail you for it. But I'm not against castration because, oh, it's not their fault. Oh, they had so many problems in their childhood. There is no excuse in the whole world for sexual assault, and I think it should be punished to the extent of the law. I think that they should stay in jail much longer than they do. I think that there needs to be enormous amount of research going into, is there anything we can do to truly reduce the risk of repeat offenses? And if there is nothing we can do, then we have got to commit to locking these people up for the rest of their lives. Because the problem is, and I've stated this, probably not in videos, but in other places, what I've stated is that, for one, we don't want to put them in jail for real long because it's not as bad as murder or anything. But so we let them out in ridiculously short amount of times, but on the other hand, we say that they're insalvageable, can never be cured, there is no treatment. We've given, psychology has given up on them. So we're going to let them out on the street knowing they're going to do it again. There's something seriously wrong with that. We have either got to find a way to truly treat them, or we're going to have to, as a society, commit to putting them away for the rest of their lives. Isn't that simply logical? I'm sure I'll get a lot of comments on this. Again, I'm just responding. Someone asked me to make a response to this. Someone had made a documentary in the UK about it called The Castration Cure. Have not seen it, not advocating it. They just asked me to answer these 4 questions in a response video. So I'm doing that and giving my opinion. So I'll see you guys next time. Kind of a not so lighthearted one, but hopefully some good stuff coming out soon. Thanks for waiting so long in between videos. Love you all. Mwah.